Okay, mini thing before we start math class about types of distance learning. If you're signing up for classes in summer, then you might care about this. And these definitions are not universally agreed upon. If you search different places, if you talk to different people, then there will be kind of some uncertainty, some using words in different ways. So one effort that LCC did on Friday was try and get all the instructors using the same vocabulary. And it didn't work. There was no great agreement, but this is as best as we have so far. So if you are signing up for a class, then you can say, what kind of class is it? And maybe that would help you know if it's the kind of thing you want to do or not. So the first difference is between synchronous and asynchronous. A synchronous class, it has all the main instructional content happen at scheduled times. Right? So you are here in my Zoom meeting. It's happening every, same days of the week, same times, and there's live instruction. I do math problems on the board. You interrupt me and ask questions and provide your comments and things like that. The popular way to do this is with Zoom, but there's other ways that we could all be together even though we're not in the same room and collaborate together. And obviously, if this wasn't distance learning, then traditional class is synchronous. We all show up together at the same class in the same room and do stuff together. An important part of a synchronous class is that students are interacting with each other at these scheduled times. It's not just that you are taking in some lecture format kind of thing, it's that there's a chance that you can interact with each other as well as with the instructor and the content. Good so far? Okay, yep. So asynchronous is the opposite of that. So all of the main instructional content is stuff that is not live or in person. It's posted online or it's in books, but it's readings, videos, podcasts, games, whatever it is, it doesn't happen at a certain time. There are shared deadlines. We're going to get through this topic this week or something like that. So you have to stay on task. But when you get your instructional content is up to you. It's never true that a certain day or a certain time is the right time to be here for this video or do this reading or things like that. As long as you make the deadlines, you do all the scheduling yourself. And not only are you not interacting with the instructor in a synchronous manner, the students aren't interacting with each other either. Maybe there will be some sort of Moodle thing where people will post their own contributions and let's all take turns adding to a discussion or adding to a project. But it's not generally true that two different students are working together at the same time unless it's sort of outside of class as a study session. Okay, is that difference okay? Everyone's happy with those terms? And I'm curious, raise your hand or say something or put something in chat if this is new to you. I'm not sure how much LCC students in general get this vocab that instructors are flooded with. Okay, this is new. Okay, so if you are upset this term because you signed up for a certain class and it turns out it's completely one way or the other and that's not what you really wanted, now you have the terms to ask your summer term teacher, by the way, is this going to be a synchronous or asynchronous class, so you know what you're getting into. Okay, now it gets more fuzzy. Pretty much everyone agrees on what these mean. A hybrid class, again, I'm not going to say it always means this, but at LCC, the idea is that what is being a hybrid, what is being smushed together like a Greek centaur, is that there are scheduled synchronous elements and there's additional asynchronous content. And you're expected to learn from both. It's not a choice. You're going to come to class and you're going to read this thing, or you're going to come to class and watch this video. And as with the synchronous classes, because there is a synchronous element, you're going to interact with each other as well as the instructor when you get together. LCC has a long history of hybrid classes because Lane County is so geographically big. There's even a room on campus that has a great big screen on the back. And I've taught there. I had most of the students in this room in the CML building just sitting in front of me because it was a room with desks. but there were also students in Florence. And they would see me on their board and I would see them on the screen in the back, and they could raise their hand and ask questions, and there was a video. It was different software than Zoom, but it was the same kind of thing. It was as if they were in the room together. So that's how LCC has a history of hybrid classes, but you could see that other classes can do this too. Okay, now we get into very fuzzy categories. Blended means almost nothing. Different people use the word blended class for all kinds of things. And part of what LCC was trying to do at the instructors meeting on Friday was come up with a common definition, and they really didn't get as far as they wanted. So be careful asking an instructor, do you have a blended class? They probably either don't know what you mean, or to them it means something else. So what is missing, if you look at these categories of type A, type B, or do both, no choice about it, is the choice about it. You can take this class as either a synchronous or an asynchronous class. There's a blend of both. There'll be some content online, and there's live instruction, and if you can't make it to the live instruction, what's online will be good enough. Or if you can't ever access the online stuff, then the live stuff is good enough. And similarly with student interaction, you can interact with each other, right? We can ask questions, use study sessions, there's things that happen together live. And there's also some personal contributions to posted things that are asynchronous. You add your contribution to a discussion on a forum. You add your bit to some project that's archived online, and everyone adds a little bit. So the class we're in here with Math 20 is trying to be blended. And the thing that it falls back on is the asynchronous student and student things. There's not a lot that you add to each other's work going on. And I've thought about that and decided not to on purpose. I think I'm asking you to do enough things already. But just be aware that it makes it kind of lonely for the people whose jobs and kids and health and spouses' health and stuff aren't at the live meeting. You have classmates that are doing well and turning in homework, and you never see them during class time. They're treating this as an asynchronous class and doing okay. And that's a good thing. Okay, finally, flipped class is more agreed upon. A flipped class is when you have the live content for action. You want the instructors and mostly the students to be interacting. There's lab work, there's projects, there's practice, there's things you're doing together when you actually are seeing each other. The instruction is as asynchronous as possible. You're going to read the book at home or watch the video at home, get some basic understanding of what to do, and then you show up to actually do the stuff. The fuzziness with a flipped class is what asynchronous as possible means. How much it is structured intentionally so that, well, yes, of course, if you could just learn everything at home reading the book or watching the video, why would you have the class at all? So there are going to be some questions. There's going to be some stumbling blocks. And how much is the asynchronous instruction designed to minimize that so we can just get to lab and go? And how much is it designed to work with that so that, yes, of course, everyone is going to come to class wondering a little bit more about this detail. So we're going to have some lecture about it. It's not completely asynchronous instruction. We know that everyone's going to have a question on this thing, and that's just part of what we'll do when we get together. Okay, questions about those two slides before I move on? Was this a good use of a few minutes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, moving on. There's this famous thing called OSCQR that you can Google yourself. And it's a set of standards for what makes a class good. Some of you have done the core learning outcomes task to earn that check mark. And that's LCC's own version of what makes a class worthwhile so that we can make sure all of our classes have something going for them. So this is sort of the international version. And it has a whole bunch, like more than 50. So this link here, which I'm not going to show you, was that people at LCC wanted to have a more manageable checklist. So they just picked their top 15. So when my boss, the math division dean, visits my classes now and then and does some sort of, how is this instructor doing? Let's write things up for his professional record. Then they give me a checklist for these things. 50 would be too many to focus on. 15 is a good number. Everyone okay with sort of that background? So an
Yep.
important part of what's happening in spring term, which might make some classes sucky this term, is that because everything happened so suddenly and people were forced to move to distance learning without really any time to prepare, then the faculty union got permission to not worry about this. No one can get penalized for teaching a class terribly in spring term. As far as I know, that's not true for summer. By the time summer comes along, you have a right as a student to complain about these things and say, wait a minute, this class isn't doing the main 15 things that LCC has agreed its classes should do well. But this term, we're just sort of all doing the best we can, instructors included. Okay, so you can look over these things. I'm not going to read them out loud to you and waste time in a class. But I expect that even with this Math 20 class, which is more prepared for distance learning than the average class, there will be some of these things that are falling short on, just because that's how life is. So feel free to complain to me if things aren't working well with these 15 topics for our class. And feel free to, or I would encourage you to look at them and see which are the most important to you. Because again, the purpose of this 15 minutes is that you can go to your instructors for summer term and say, I was struggling in spring because I really wanted one of these types of classes and it was the other. Or I was struggling in spring because the class was missing number 4 and number 8 or whatever it was. And then you can say, is your class going to do a better job? If not, maybe I should wait till fall. Or maybe I should take the same class from a different instructor. Or maybe I should ask you now, well, it's still the middle of spring term. Could you make sure number 4 is a good solid thing? Because I want to take your class and I need number 4 or whatever it is. Okay, your turn to talk. I'm going to turn off the recording